Tradition states that every AA group already be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions will now pass the basket. I'll also pass around the sign-up sheet for chair or coffee commitments. You can sign up for a weekly, monthly, or if you want the whole all 12 steps. Service is a great way to stay sober. This is a weekly step meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on that step of the week, followed by discussion or questions until 7. And you can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. Yeah. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day, Monday, March 18th, 2024, in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, at the Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group of St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Dave, and he's going to be sharing his experience on steps 6 and 7. Please help me welcome Dave.
Hi everyone, I'm Dave. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey Dave.
It's my pleasure to be here to share with you guys my my experience with alcoholism, and then AA, and becoming sober through the steps in this program. Friends like Nick. So thank you for the invitation. So I'll just start off with what happened in the beginning to qualify myself as an alcoholic. I wasn't supposed to be an alcoholic in my mind. That role was reserved for, I guess, other people in the family. I should mention it's a family disease for me. A brother, 2 uncles, potentially a grandfather, although he died younger of a brain tumor, and maybe cousin. So my parents encouraged me to stay away from alcohol and drugs, and my older brother had 2 DUIs by the time I graduated from high school. So I guess I was they scared me straight. I didn't want to find out what would happen. But then when I went to college, I guess I was more open to experimentation and whatever my parents, I was in a rebellious phase, and I was living not at home for the first time and thought I could reinvent myself as like a cool kid. Not that I was unpopular in high school, but, I just kind of goes to that sense of just being self-conscious and different from, lesser than, felt inadequate, and didn't know where those feelings came from, and always measuring, comparing myself to other people and not feeling worthy enough. So then when I got to alcohol, when I got to college, it didn't occur to me that just that first drink, I remember I didn't put much thought into it. I certainly didn't think I would end up in this seat several years later, but it started off very simply. And then, matter of fact, I don't think I got drunk. I definitely got buzzed the first night, and I felt the effects of alcohol. And I made up my mind. It was something I really, really liked. I liked the effects because I liked how it made me feel. And it took away some of the uneasy feelings of being me, just walking around with that feeling inside, just uncomfortable. And then later recognizing it, I think, as a spiritual malady, irritable, restless, discontent. And it seemed to quiet that part of me. And, the social butterfly kind of came alive and everything. And so I definitely got into my scrapes with alcohol in college. I joined a fraternity, which didn't help. But I managed to graduate. I had a degree in chemical engineering. I had a 3.8 GPA. So I don't know how I did it in hindsight, but that was my two jobs. Academics and being a party animal, getting drunk as often as I could. And so graduated. I met my wife in college. We got married a couple years later. And alcohol is like that. Was like my first love, really, that followed us into the marriage, and then eventually when kids came along, It was always in the picture. Matter of fact, when I go back and look at older pictures, it's like, man, like almost when I was drinking, like especially towards the end, there wasn't a picture where I didn't have some kind of drink in my hand. Like you see a child with like a stuffed animal or a blanket or a pacifier or something. It's like because I couldn't go anywhere or do anything without alcohol towards the end. My kids, blessed with two kids, healthy. They're 11 and 8. When my son was born, I smuggled alcohol into the labor and delivery room because I was really nervous about becoming a father. And the irony is my wife decided to give birth, naturally, like without any kind of pain meds or, an epidural or whatever, they could give women for the pains of the contractions, the labor pains. And she's like, I'm going to try to, and I could see that she was physically in pain and everything. And all I could think of was myself. I mean, I felt for her in a way, but I was numbing myself with alcohol, and I was sneaking off, when I had an opportunity and had vodka or something. I thought she couldn't smell it, and oh man, when she called me out on that, it was after my son was born and everything, and I could just feel her disappointment, because up until that point I promised her I would stop, because she was worried about, man, you're drinking so often, how are we going to get to the hospital? Like, you're going to have to drive me. I'm not going to be able to drive myself. Don't worry. I'll quit tomorrow, or I'll quit in 2 weeks. Does that sound familiar? And I really, I don't know if I was bullshit, or I don't know if I was BSing her or myself, maybe both, but I just wasn't ready to stop. I didn't think I could, and so just just for today, I'm going to drink, and and then to make matters worse, this is I guess the highlights or the lowlights of my story before I get into recovery. She asked me, well, can you go out to Wawa? I'm kind of hungry. I don't really feel like eating the hospital food, and can you get me like roast beef hoagie, provolone, the works, and a Mountain Dew, because I could use the caffeine, and there was probably something else. I came back 3 hours later with the hoagie. I think she wanted it toasted. It was cold by then. I had forgotten the Mountain Dew, and because I was, as soon as I left, I sprinted to the nearest bar and demanded shots, and was just, I was getting drunk, getting more drunk. And, so that's kind of an embarrassing story, but when we get into step 6 and 7, I mean, it talks about humility and humbling ourselves and everything. It's like I tell that story because it could help someone in the room, and it definitely helps me to remind myself of where this disease took me, And I'm definitely ashamed of that, but at the same time, it had to happen. It was meant to happen. That was part of my story. I needed to sink that low, and that definitely wasn't my last drink either, so maybe I should get to that. So that was, my son was born in 2012. My sobriety date, sorry, I should have said January 8th, 2017. Did I say I'm an alcoholic? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit.
I think you did.
I'm a little bit. Yeah, all right. Yeah, let me get that part out of the way. If I say nothing else, let me say that, right? I know Ron's looking at me. He's taking notes. So what I'm saying is, I continue to, drink. This is a progressive disease, so the drinking became more frequent. I drank. More, consumed more volume because my tolerance was building, and I just needed more, to try it. I was chasing that elusive feeling that I guess I once had, and meanwhile it was causing more problems for me, in the home and everything. And what led me to AA was not that I thought that I had a problem. It was my wife giving me an ultimatum and saying, you need help. This is obviously, how many times have you said you're going to stop drinking and you're still drinking? I mean, I'm not going to go through this anymore and, raise the kids. I love you, but this has got to stop. You need help. This is either you don't care about, me and the kids. You're just selfish. You're selfish, whatever. Or this is beyond your, beyond human aid, as they say. And let's hope it's the latter. So I actually, before AA, I went to alcohol and drug rehabilitation counselor in Sellersville. And he's not one of us, but he, has a lot of clinical experience interacting with people, in rehabs. And so he's very knowledgeable of the disease. And that kind of the door started opening there where I'm like, huh. I took a quiz or a survey where it's like, are you an alcoholic? And I remember I was afraid to find out. I didn't have the courage to take the test, so I got drunk and then I took it. And if that's not irony, I don't know what is. If that's not, kind of proving the point, because I was this is a disease of fear and resentment which drive you to drink. And so I used alcohol as a cure-all, for pain, for managing my emotions. It just, towards the end, I wanted to stop. It went like this. Like, I don't want to stop. I don't have a problem. I don't want to stop. To, well, maybe it gets out of hand a little bit. To, all right, well, it, causes problems, but I could stop whenever I want to. I just don't want to stop. To, okay, well, I think I'm going to try to stop, but what I've been doing isn't working, but I'll just try something new. I didn't need to try controlled drinking. I tried to manage my alcoholism, through the list in the book. Pretty much check all those boxes, most of them. But I didn't know that this I was capable of having this disease. I just had the blinders on. I was the last person to see that I was an alcoholic. And I had enablers saying, you're not an alcoholic. A real alcoholic is, fill in the blank, what you see depicted in Hollywood, Real extreme examples of someone drinking on a park bench out of a paper bag or drinking mouthwash and, it's like, hey, when I was drinking, there was no stopping me. I would drink mouthwash. I don't know if I ever did. And I definitely slept in strange places and woken up not having any recollection. I was a blackout drinker. So anyways, the therapist, I just repeated the pattern of, going to therapy and, I guess wanting to stop drinking and then getting, sober for a little bit and then changing my mind. Oh my God, I couldn't make up my mind. Am I really an alcoholic or not? Because I would start to feel better and like, yeah, I think I overreacted. And I didn't know about, it's the first drink gets you drunk. And I didn't know about the physical allergy, So I really thought knowledge could help me become a moderate drinker. You know what I mean? I hadn't accepted step one. So I needed to go through that horrendous period of going back and forth, sitting on the fence. I'm a potential alcoholic. I'm maybe a partial alcoholic. Oh, I'm a real alcoholic. That was really bad. I never want to drink again. Back and forth. It's just that's torture. And all I know is this disease has so much power over me. I remember when I wouldn't want to drink, and then all of a sudden, I would, and this was around the time I started going to AA meetings, I would make up my mind, I'm going to drink. Just this time, I deserve a drink, I'm just going to, and I would sprint. Like if there was alcohol in the house or if I didn't, I would get in the car and all I could tell you is, like, I was going to get that drink. You better not get in my damn way, sorry for the language. But it was like an electromagnet pulling me. And I just had a one-track mind. I'm going to zero beeline right to the liquor store or right to the wherever it was. And I'm not going to stop till I'm drunk or blacked out or, or whatever. Anyway, so 14 minutes. We go to what, 25?
Yeah, 30.
Or 30, okay. So my last drink was January 7th, 2017. By that point, I had been going to AA for a couple months, and the reason it wasn't working because I wasn't working it. Do you know what I mean? I understand the people who come here and they are the first time winners, or they get it the first time. That wasn't my story. And, it's because I had not surrendered yet, and I could not admit to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic and, all the ramifications of being an alcoholic. You can't have that first drink. There's no like, well, maybe you're 75% alcoholic 60% of the time, but the other part, you can maybe manage to have some drinks and just things will work out. Like, it is an absolute binary. Either are or you aren't, and there's no matter of degree, like how severe it is. We're all on the same scale, you know what I mean? But I was comparing, and that got me into trouble. So anyways, nothing really remarkable other than it was like a Saturday, and it was really cold in January, and I made up my mind that I was going to drink, try this insane experiment again, see what happens. I wanted to drink. I don't know how I'm going to ever live without alcohol. I'm not an alcoholic. And my wife found the alcohol that I was hiding. I was like, this is really dangerous. I was at the computer, and I think I was on social media and maybe sending messages to people, and oh my God, it's, how I didn't get like fired or, it's amazing because, the things I said and where my mind went when I was in a blackout, I was, a wild animal. So had it stashed under the computer, desk, and then she found it when I went out to go to the bathroom or something, and I came back, it was gone. So that almost came to blows, you know what I mean? I'm not proud to admit that. I didn't hit my wife, but I was very angry that she took the alcohol away from me, and I'm sure you guys understand to some degree. And not trying to justify it. I'm saying that to remind myself how bad it got. And anyways, so I thought, well, I'm pretty good at talking people into things. So why don't I call one of the AA guys that I know, and I speak to him in his language about, I got the burning desire, I have this, I have the obsession, the craving, and I can't stop it. Can you please just this once, like, pick me up and take me to, get alcohol? Just understand, my wife cut off my supply, and in my alcoholic, stupor, I really thought he's like, sure, you pick me up. I thought he was going to take me to, to a bar or somewhere to get more to drink because he could empathize, right? It's a cruel thing to take away an alcoholic's alcohol when they're in the middle of a binge, isn't it? You guys can agree to that. And but he was sober when he picked me up, and he was a good man, and he was working the steps, and he took me to, where he took me? He took me to this place, but on Saturday night, Ron's meeting. And it wasn't my first AA meeting, but it was my first AA meeting after I guess I had some kind of spiritual awakening, because after the fact, I realized, this man's self-sacrifice. It's a Saturday night. He had plans with his fiance, a young kid, and those plans didn't involve carting my drunk self around, Doylestown, and listening to my ramblings about, my wife and my job and what was me. He took me to Five Guys, I think, somewhere between Quakertown and Doylestown. He even paid for the meal. We got a burger and fries that tasted really good going down, and I don't really remember what we talked about, but he listened and, nodded his head and offered some advice, I suppose. But he took me to the meeting, and I don't remember really what the person at the meeting said. I was, drunk. And now when I see a person who's in a meeting and they're visibly intoxicated, I'm like, whoa, they're really bad. And it's like, I have to remind myself, yeah, that was me. I went to a couple meetings drunk, really drunk. The last time I drank, I ended up at a meeting. So anyways, that was my last drink, and I would say that what was different was I just, I surrendered. Something about driving home and I just felt I had to make a choice, and there was no, honesty, right? I could no longer, I had to be honest with myself, right? Starting with myself and look myself in the mirror and be like, you are this person that you fear to be, this alcoholic. I was afraid of the stigma. I was afraid of what it meant to admit I was an alcoholic and to take responsibility for having a disease, where it means to drink is to die. I was trying to live out my whole life at once, and like, how am I going to go 40 years, 30 years, go to my son's wedding and I'm not going to drink? Are you kidding me? I had all these questions, and I found all the answers in these rooms, not all at once, but I just, all I have to say is I put as much mental energy into trying to get sober on the other side than I did when I was trying to get drunk. And that was the game changer for me. I wanted to get sober for me. And for the first, I would say 90 days, I went to 90 meetings, 90 days. I had a sponsor, but I never really called them. So I started calling, guys on the way home from work or sometimes on the way to work, because I was afraid. Those were the times when I was most vulnerable, when I'm like, I really hate my boss. I was so stressed today. Maybe a drink's a good idea. And I just didn't want, my brain to con me into doing that. So I would try to be engaged in conversation with another sober alcoholic on the phone. This awesome person next to me, Nick, answered the call several times, and I had a lengthy phone list. I programmed them all into my phone. I had to get over the awkwardness of calling a stranger. Some people, I don't know who they were. Maybe did I even meet them? I was willing to do whatever it took to just to not drink for that day. One day at a time helped me. And then my sponsor slowly but surely started taking me through the steps. I put up step 2 for me, I think, came to fruition when I got to 90 days, and I got my 3 months chip, because I realized that, I had never gone that length of time without drinking on my own. So that gave me a faith and a power greater than myself, and I felt like I was starting to get restored to sanity, in the sense that I was starting to see the world and my behavior for what it was, instead of living in a kind of an alcoholic haze where, up is down and down is up, and, and then step 3 was, I'm so thankful for Nick, because he introduced me to all these things that, maybe if I had gone to enough meetings, I eventually would have found out, but I didn't know it was a 3rd step prayer and a 7th step prayer. And he gave me the card, and he's, encouraged me, like, hey, try praying these, like, when you can. If you can't, you're not ready for these specific prayers, you can just talk to God in your own words. Just start with, like, please in the morning, please keep me sober just for today. I don't want to drink. Please, God, help me, higher power, and then in the evening, thank you, please and thank you, right? And I had prayed before, and I had a religious upbringing, but I didn't feel like, God or higher power. I wasn't really bought into that concept at first, but I was willing to, like, just to do anything not to drink, because, towards the end, I felt that I knew that this thing was going to kill me eventually. Given enough time, I was going to end up dead. And, I don't want to die an alcoholic death. I want to live. It's not that I don't want to die an alcoholic death. I want to live. And I didn't really think there was a way to live without alcohol. I mourned, sorry if I'm going a little bit back and forth in the time frame, but when I first was coming in and around and practicing step 1, it was like I felt like I went through a mourning or a grieving process, because alcohol was everything to me. Alcohol was my reason for living. It was my secret to living. You know, it was my cure-all. You know, aches and pains and everything. It just, you know, and I self-medicated. I was my own doctor and prescribed, you know, alcohol was always the prescription, right? You know, just drink, and it'll take with that problem and everything. So I remember sitting in AA meetings thinking about contemplating, you know, being an alcoholic and thinking like, okay, well, you know, there's no fooling around. And I know just for today and everything, and that definitely helps me, but I was really coming to terms with, you know, what it means to be an alcoholic. And I needed to go through that process, you know. And so I put off step 4 and 5 until it became unbearable, you know, because I still was walking around with all the, you know, the resentments and fears which drove me to drink in the first place. And so I knew the time was right. I didn't want to do it. You know, laziness, fear, all sorts of reasons. And, you know, and I should mention I'm kind of a perfectionist. I'm very detail oriented. And so my sponsor later told me, and my therapist, like, you know, you don't have to write quite as much and obsess about, you know, every single word and getting it right and everything. Like, just, you know, you don't have to, you're over intellectualizing it. Just get some of your how you're feeling, your thoughts, like, out on paper, and don't worry about it sounding perfectly. You know what I mean? I don't know if that resonates with any of you guys, but it was a long process, and my sponsor encouraged me to, this is non-conventional, but, you know, I would write a little bit and then I would share. So I kind of did step 4 and 5 a little bit in tandem. I also shared with my my therapist, and that helped as well because I got different perspectives, you know, on that. And that kind of leads me to step 6 and 7, which is the you know, the kind of the theme for tonight. And you know, it definitely was it was powerful to go through 4 and 5 because it made me realize that I'm definitely not perfect, and a lot of the reasons I had conflicts in other relationships were the result of, you know, wrongdoing on my part, you know. And while I can't control other people's behavior, what they think or act towards me, I can clean my side of the street. I could focus on bettering myself, becoming more my, you know, my true self, by shedding these defects of character, these shortcomings. And so from doing the work in 4 and 5, I had a lengthy list of what all those defects were. And, you know, it was just a matter of becoming willing. There's some to this day which I still kind of cling to, but, you know, practicing step 6, become entirely willing. I feel like there's definitely been points where out of desperation, like, I just don't want to live this way anymore, you know, my way. It's even if I'm not drinking and stuff, like, it still doesn't feel good when I take my will back and I'm just living in gluttony or sloth, you know, or even anger. I feel like a lot of these things, when you know, done to excess, can be almost like ingesting alcohol. You know, you can just lose your rage out on someone, and then afterwards, for me at least, it could feel like a hangover. Like, you know, that release of adrenaline, and then you're afterwards, like, you're like ashamed and you feel guilty. You got to apologize, and it was just like drinking. So it's like, I don't want to live like that anymore. So, you know, that's where step 7 came in, and it's more than just the prayer. It's I'd say the step 7 prayer, but it's doing the remaining steps. You know, there's no wishing, like, to be free from envy or whatever. I have to put the work in. You know, so the examples I'll give is, like, sometimes, like, at work, I see that there's people who get, like, promotions or something, and I feel like, well, you know, where's my promotion? You know, I'm pretty special. I work harder than that person. Well, they only got it because of X, Y, and Z. And so, you know, I'm stricken with envy and jealousy, and it doesn't feel good. So what's the antidote to that? You know, my sponsor had given me a piece of paper that had on one column on the left all the defects of character and the sins, vices, if you will, shortcomings. Then on the right, what's kind of the opposite? And that's what we should strive for. So instead of me like focusing on, God, please remove this envy from me, it's just too much for me to bear. It's like, well, ask that, but then also do the work to become more grateful for what I have. Stop comparing myself to others and saying, you know, where's my promotion? Be like, you know what? I'm grateful that I'm really blessed to have this job. You know, all these reasons I have this job. Like I'm really blessed and I'm grateful. And all I have to say is, if it didn't work, I wouldn't. You know, I don't feel like that. After 7 years sober, you know, I need that emotional sobriety to keep me going. You know. So yeah, so that's, I'm sorry, it's 30 minutes. I'm not sure. It's probably a good wrapping point for me. But again, thanks for letting me be here and share my story with you guys. And that's all I have to share.
Okay, please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking, or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. And Dave, you can select whoever would like to share. The floor is now for personal sharing.